I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay.
Benjamin Netanyahu, do you think he's a war criminal?
Again.
Do you ever stop and think, is this real life? Is this really happening? Well, in this video, I have 4 different stories that I want to get to. Stuff that just caught my eye that I think is worth bringing up. Most of it terrible, to be honest with you. But I'm going to end with a nice, fun palate cleanser involving Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry. I know it's a ridiculous story, but the way a certain paper covered it, I thought was very bizarre. But also in this video, the more important stories. Trump gives up the game, then talks about heaven. Jennifer Welch, the podcaster, breaking Cory Booker with one simple question. Leaked chats from the next wave of Republican leaders as well. So all of that in this video. Let me start with Trump giving up the game and then talking about heaven in a very odd clip. But this starts with this ridiculous photo here. Israeli PM Netanyahu gave President Trump a golden dove. So the golden dove, you know, because these are 2 very peaceful individuals here. As Henry Fjord writes, guy who bombed the kids gives a symbol of peace to the guy who gave him the bombs. Yeah. So on that point, I'm sure you've already seen Israel has already broken the ceasefire. That's a whole video in and of itself. But here is Trump talking about how he operates. This is him giving up the game.
I mean, Bibi would call me so many times, can you get me this weapon, that weapon, that weapon? Some of them I never heard of, Bibi, and I made them. But we'd get them here, wouldn't we? Huh? And they are the best. They are the best. But you used them well. It also takes people that know how to use them. And you obviously used them very well.
Use them very well to commit the genocide and destroy Gaza. I guess if you're a fan of weapons, that's how to use them well. It's hard to know how to react to that just because it is so blatantly disgusting. But it actually gets, in terms of the corruption aspect of it, it gets a little worse. I just want to share here this story on the broken ceasefire. You cease, I fire. Israel kills at least 9 in Gaza, says it will break truce aid terms. So as they write, Israel's working extremely hard to blow up the ceasefire. That's according to an observer after IDF troops shot dead Palestinians trying to return to their homes. This gets to how Trump has been operating for years as a politician. Pro-Israel donor with $100 million plans to elect Trump. This is a report from last year before the election. This is Miriam Adelson, who of course is the widow of the late Sheldon Adelson, who during Trump's 2020 run donated $100 million to Trump and Republicans. Now, what did that get them? Here is Donald Trump discussing.
But every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. Isn't that right, Miriam? Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I could think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got $60 billion in the bank, $60 billion. And I think she's saying no more. And she loves Israel, but she loves it, and they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me. And he'd call up, can I come over and see you? I say, Sheldon, I'm the president of the United States. It doesn't work that way. He'd come in, and we would do. But they were very responsible for so much, including getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things to ever happen. She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say.
Just worth noting that little comment at the end there is an obvious anti-Semitic trope that, of course, made no headlines, but if any Democrat said that, it would be huge news. That all aside, what Trump is describing there is the corruption that you often have to wait for reporting journalists to investigate, to expose. Trump is just outright telling you, these people gave me a ton of money. They're massive billionaires. They called me up, and even though I didn't have time, I still met with them because they're huge supporters of mine. and I did what they wanted, and I focused on these issues, and I did these things that they asked for. That, like, that's the whole thing. That's everything wrong with how American politics operates. Just laid out there. And does this support base care? Does anybody care? Like this in itself, massive story. Every single day, there are several massive stories. This is a huge story. And it's just going to get lost because there is so much going on right now. This gets to his clip about heaven. He was on Air Force One and made this comment.
You talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, you know, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven.
There are these moments of self-reflection that Donald Trump has that really give you a window into his awareness of what he is doing, what he has done, who he is, despite how he acts usually in public, how he talks himself up. He knows exactly who he is, what he has done, how terrible of a person he is. This gets to the quote that I was reminded of after seeing that clip. This is from 2014. Vox published this article. Trump in 2014, quote, "I don't like to analyze myself because I might not like what I see." It's hard to imagine how somebody can be this self-aware yet not take any steps necessary to reverse course and to try to be a better person. He just completely gives in to his id. And ultimately, I don't think he really enjoys working. I think he enjoys performing. But he, legislates, gives people like Stephen Miller, the absolute worst of the worst, keys to the car, and the U.S. is where it's at. So it's wild to see the sort of awareness from somebody who is such a terrible individual. This gets to the next story. So Cory Booker was on the I've Had It podcast. Jennifer Welch here asks a fantastic question that let's be clear. The question is just a normal question. This is not like it's a great question because it's Cory Booker, but it's a question that any politician should be able to answer based on the literal ICC arrest warrant and the numerous human rights organizations, including ones within Israel, that have stated this. But Cory Booker dances around this answer, and that tells you everything you need to know.
Benjamin Netanyahu, do you think he's a war criminal?
Again, these are questions that a lot of people think are the important litmus tests that are loaded and hot. My urgency is to be an effective leader in bringing an end to this crisis. And I get these questions all the time that, to me, undermine my urgency.
I think the thing that Democrats get so frustrated with, where we are right now, where you see like the Zoran Mamdanis and the Graham Plattners rise up, because they can go on podcasts and you can say, do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal? And they just say, yes. And that's the end of it. It's not all of the rhetoric answering. It's like what happens to Democratic politicians, they go through this like prism, and then we can't ever get like the answer to yes or no conversations like you do with Bernie and others. And that's the frustration for the Democratic base with
Netanyahu
leadership.
Is worse than Trump? Yes.
If you are more concerned about Netanyahu's feelings than you are about acknowledging an ICC arrest warrant, then you can't be trusted as a politician or a leader. How can anybody possibly trust you if you won't recognize these organizations like the ICC, like the UN, that we rely on to uphold some sort of standards? If you don't acknowledge those standards, then how can anybody take you seriously? So Cory Booker, of course, was part of the bipartisan group of senators who met with Netanyahu despite the ICC arrest warrant. There he is, trying to hide his face amongst the crowd of mostly Republicans here. But even people like, of course, Chuck Schumer, Amy Klobuchar there, Ted Cruz, just a gross man. But he's not the only one. Gavin Newsom, as this account writes, Zionist Dem leader Gavin Newsom struggles to speak after podcast host brings up AIPAC. I'll just play this on screen. This is a wild watch because of how he answers this so awkwardly.
Interesting. You're like the first to bring up AIPAC in years, which is interesting.
I will not vote for a candidate that takes $1 from AIPAC.
It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. I haven't thought about AIPAC. And it's interesting. You're like the first to bring up AIPAC in years, which is interesting.
Why?
Why did I say that? Not relevant to my day-to-day life.
Okay.
Which is just interesting.
Listen.
It's interesting you say that. JPAC perhaps more, but AIPAC less and less.
Okay. Fair enough.
Which is just interesting.
What's interesting about it?
That it's just interesting as you bring up AIPAC that it hasn't been part of. I'm just reflecting quite openly and honestly. Hasn't been part of the day to day.
Yeah. The only reason why I ask is because with that, what I'm talking about is lobbying in and of itself.
If you thought I said the word interesting a lot, Gavin Newsom, I think, has broken the record on the use of interesting. As Matt Duss writes here, anyone hoping to run in 2028 is going to have to come up with a way better answer on this than it's interesting. And I'm sorry, but Newsom wants us to believe that Van Lathan, who's the podcast host there, is the first person to mention AIPAC to him in years. Come on. It's so absurd. Like the past 2 years, with everything going on, AIPAC all of a sudden is a new idea to you? This is a new topic that hasn't been brought up before? Ridiculous. You're full of shit. So look, I'll give credit to Gavin Newsom on the memeing stuff. He's good on Twitter making fun of Trump. Okay, cool. That doesn't make you a good political leader. That maybe you should run somebody's social media account, but maybe you should not be running a country if you can't acknowledge how powerful AIPAC has been historically, let alone over the past couple of years. Also worth mentioning on this topic, Israel is responsible for 95% of journalist and media worker killings in the Middle East since October 7th, according to October 7th, 2023, according to CPJ data. More than 3 in every 4 journalists and media workers killed worldwide over the past 2 years were Palestinians in Gaza. Again, there have been, a story here and there about this. This is not as widely spread or recognized as it should be. And again, if any other country was doing this, it would be a massive news story. Now, the next story, Politico. I don't know if I can even say this on YouTube. Probably not, and I probably shouldn't. But these leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. This is incredible report. Just chat after chat after chat of the most disgusting shit you will ever read. These are not from, some kids who are trying to be edgy and conservative. These are often Republican staffers, people that work for other Republicans, the next generation of Republicans coming up, writing just the most insane garbage you've ever seen. And it is like, it's not surprising. Like when I saw this story, this is definitely a news story. I'm glad it's being reported on. I'm glad it's being shared so that we have, evidence of this. But is anybody really surprised? This is the Republican Party. So of course the people that work for this party and see Donald Trump as their leader are going to think this way and operate this way. So leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country are in this. They refer to black people as monkeys and the watermelon people, quote unquote, amused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. They talked about that their enemies and driving them to suicide, and a lot of Republicans who they believe support slavery. Again, certain words here, I got to be careful because of the platform that we are on, but you can read this yourself. Many of the chat members already work inside government or party politics, and one serves as a state senator. Together, the messages reveal a culture where racist, anti-Semitic, and violent rhetoric circulate freely, and where the Trump-era loosening of political norms has made such talk feel less taboo among those positioning themselves as the party's next leaders. So some examples: William Hendricks, the Kansas Young Republicans vice chair; Bobby Walker, the vice chair of the New York State Young Republicans; and Peter Giunta, who at the time was chair of the same organization. And again, to reiterate, these are not children. This is Peter Giunta. I tried to find his age. I couldn't find it, but I don't know, mid-40s? Like, that's how it looks to me. So these are not kids. These are people that work within the Republican Party. In Giunta's case, he was indeed fired. He worked for New York Assemblyman Michael Riley. So he was the chief of staff. And Peter Giunta served in Riley's office for more than 5 years, was linked to the text. He was the one that actually said that quote and made comments about sending people to the gas chamber if they don't support his nomination for the chair of the Young Republican National Federation. And yeah, also said this: I'm going to create some of the greatest physiological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers. Some real insane people in that chat. He also shared that his after his flight to Charleston, South Carolina, after it landed safely, he offered some advice for his fellow young Republicans. Quote, if your pilot is a she and she looks 10 shades darker than someone from Sicily, just end it there. Scream the no word. All right, I think we all need a palate cleanser now, right? Justin Trudeau, Katy Perry are apparently dating. Here they are kissing on a PDA-filled yacht outing in California. Now, this to me is not the story. The story to me is that a newspaper in Canada, which wants you to take it seriously, the National Post, has posted every single day since this news story has come out. So here, the 11th, they're spotted kissing. On the 12th, a Canadian PM named Trudeau dating beautiful celebrities. It's happened before. The 13th, this is the most insane story. Justin Trudeau, just too vanilla, quote unquote, for Katy Perry, says Canadian super fan who voted conservative. Quote, to be honest with you, I think he kind of stole my thunder. I read through this article. You can go and find it. Look up the headline if you want. I'm not going to link to it because I don't want to link to National Post trash. But it reads like they interviewed a stalker. That's how it comes off to me. Now, this is a guy who apparently he was on stage with Katy Perry once and they sang a song together. He's a big super fan. But the interview reads a lot more creepy than that. I just think it's very bizarre. And I learned today that you could be a conservative voter, a male adult, and be a huge Katy Perry super fan. I just didn't know. Those things crossing don't make a whole lot of sense to me. But that said, it's a very bizarre article. But then they went on the next day to post another one. What Katy Perry and Sophie Gregoire have said since new Justin Trudeau relationship revealed. Okay, like it's just National Post at this point is a tabloid. This is supposed to be a serious conservative newspaper. It's funded, at least in part, by U.S. company. So just so you understand what's behind all of this, it's just a very bizarre story and one that I found hilarious, but definitely not something anyone needs to be concerned about or care about. I care very little about the personal relationships of former politicians, let alone current politicians, but I mean, any of them, I don't really care. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts on Trudeau and Katy Perry. No, I'm joking. Let me know your thoughts on everything in this video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe and check out some of the other videos I have on this channel.